So I, as Tasha mentioned, digital media marketing manager at MoMA. I started working at MoMA about 3 years ago. And just some background on MoMA. We're in Midtown Manhattan in New York City. The museum was founded in 1929, and it has one of the best, well-known collections of modern and contemporary art in the world. In fact, the collection has about over 170,000 objects, and like a lot of large and small museums, it can only show a certain percentage of its collection. The museum today was redesigned and reopened in 2004, and while it opened to a lot of praise and criticism, while we got a lot more gallery space, there was also some criticism about the space just being another white box, another just plain gallery, as well as being a bit cold and personal and corporate. And I bring that up sort of as a reason in that one way we could try to use social media is to sort of counter that argument. The website we have right now was launched just about a year ago. So the collection, there are 7 curatorial departments in our collection: architecture, design, drawing, film, media and performance art, painting and sculpture, photography, prints and illustrated books. So we're very fortunate in that our content really spans a lot of different disciplines. Again, digital marketing at MoMA consists of our e-newsletters, online banners, search engine marketing, which is like Google AdWords. If you put in the search to Google, I'll show you an example. The ads that come on the right column is known as search engine marketing. Search engine optimization, website analytics, other digital promotions and partnerships, and now our social media communities. And these are just some quick examples of digital marketing that we're doing. On the left is the Google AdWords. So if putting a museum of modern art or things to do in New York, an ad from MoMA might come up on the right. It's a very, very efficient way actually of digital marketing, because you only pay when people click on the link. The right is 2 banner ads we ran on the New York Times in the Arts and Design section last fall. These are just 2 examples of our e-news, of our emails. So when I got to the museum about 3 years ago, the only social media site they had up already was YouTube, and they just created a YouTube channel and had about 3 videos up. But there was a general resistance, particularly in the marketing department, about jumping into social media, particularly Facebook. And I think the resistance was basically, people felt that, we should just jump into it because everyone else is doing it. How would we differentiate ourselves from others? How would we use this, particularly for MoMA? And for about 8 months later, one of my bosses and I went to Museums on the Web, which is a conference that year was in Montreal. And when we came back, we just really realized that one of the powers of social media was going, all these platforms, going to where people already are. Facebook, Flickr, going where people are and making your content available to them there. At the same time, I came across this quote from British writer Charles Ledbetter, or Ledbetter, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, a book called We Think, and there was online on YouTube, there was sort of a video illustrating the ideas in the book. He talks a lot about how all these new digital platforms make it so that we can all collaborate and talk to each other across the world. And I came across this one quote that just really struck me. It's in the past you were what you own, now you are what you share. And being at MoMA with its collection and its history and curatorial expertise and stories, it just really, really struck me that we had a lot that we could share and share outside of our walls. So I think these 2 factors, realizing that we could put our content out to where people already are and put them on places where they can take it and then share it with their networks, as well as this idea that we have so much to share to people who may never even make it to the museum, but would be interested in our content. This really sparked our thoughts about using social media. And right when we got back from using it from the web, Allegra and I really started saying, you know, it's silly, why are we asking, should we be on there? We should be asking, why aren't we on there? So that Sunday afternoon, after we got back from Montreal, Allegra put up our, without really telling anybody, put up a Facebook page, and we were sort of off and running. So I'm just going to sort of go through the platforms that we're using right now. As I said, when I got to MoMA, they had started a YouTube channel and had about 3 videos up. Now we have about 212 videos. And these range from everything from interviews with curators, interviews with artists, behind the scenes videos of installations. We did a time-lapse video of a Richard Serra installation, which in our garden, which was quite popular. To our public programs, to even musical events and parties. Recently, we've been doing more of an effort to come up with sort of more compelling content than just what's happening in the museum. And I was just going to play 2 examples. Hopefully they'll play well. If they don't, I'll just move on. But and in this, trying to really include our visitors and our members and getting the user's perspective. So the first one we did with a, and I should say that we do most of our videos in-house, particularly in the beginning. Now we're starting to more complicated or polished videos. We are starting to use people from outside. This series is called 30 Seconds, and we worked with an artist, Swiss artist named Theo Hoffman. And they're basically 30-second pieces with members and also 30-second pieces with staff. This example is a 30-second piece with a member's actually child walking through the museum. Let's see.
Now I think we are going left. That's cool. I don't know what those are. I know that. Those are funny cheers. So let's keep moving. Here on this elevator. They're getting close. I'm getting very tired. Nobody's inside the helicopter. Bye-bye.
So what I love about that is that he says a lot of things that adults say, like, I don't know what that is and I'm getting tired, you know. But it's sort of showing more the playful side of the museum, sort of more irreverent side, and from the users, and in this case, members, families' perspective. This next piece we worked with, and this is a more polished piece. It's a piece we did actually with a filmmaker who was in the year's previous film festival we had, a new director for the film. And again, this is sort of trying to show the visitor's perspective and the value of coming to a place like MoMA.
The sculpture you were looking at drew ridicule and shame when the artist first exhibited it in 1913. Nearly a century later, Symphony No. 1 is considered a pivotal example of abstract sculpture. Your immediate reaction might be to dismiss this work, just as your boss dismissed you after making what anyone would agree was an honest mistake. But if you allow yourself to really look at this piece, you'll see that it awakens all senses simultaneously. Remember the labored walk of a man in the subway, and the steady rhythm of the train. Then the taste of Ellie's lips together with the softness of the blanket, and the sound of your friend's laughter. Life is a constant clashing and colliding of perceptions, Frank.
There are crises moving force of the Great Depression.
And maybe this is what the artist, Baronoff Ralstonate, tried to convey in his work, but at the time it was so experimental and unappreciated that the artist took a sculpture similar to the one you're looking at and threw it into the river Seine. He was so discouraged that he wanted the water to swallow up and corrode his vision. But later he went back and recovered his work. Why? Because somewhere in the back of his mind he had a lingering hope that someday someone would feel what he felt, see what he saw.
I did show two examples that, budget-wise, did take more to produce. But we do have a lot of stuff we do in-house, and just sort of off right off the seat of our pants, but that's where we go. One of the great things about YouTube is that, again, this is an example of going to where people are. I think YouTube is still one of the second most searched site out of Google. So there are a lot of people there searching for content. As well, this is content that people can take and they can put on their blogs, put on their websites. And the IC video, people are still, I think that came out about a year ago, people still are finding that. I see people comment on it on Twitter and Facebook. People are still finding it and commenting about it. So it's content that still is being used and being seen, and so it's quite effective. You can see the page on the right, we sort of branded it with MoMA, sort of made it look, like the MoMA brand. One great thing about some of these platforms, YouTube being one of them, is that you can really learn about the people who are viewing your videos. You can see it breaks down by male, female, age, demographic. Geographically, shows you where people are watching these videos from. We had a Middle Eastern film festival, and that week and the week after, I think after the United States, the top 3 or 4 were Middle Eastern countries, Syria, Turkey, and I believe in Jordan. So it was very interesting. People from all around the world now can view your content and join that. You can also see the spikes in views, and this helps you figure out what content is working, what content are people really interested in. iTunes, in October 2007, we started creating all of our audio files that we had on our site already up on iTunes U. It's sort of the nonprofit educational part of iTunes. And our audio includes all of our audio guides that you can use in the museum. Special exhibitions audio that's created particularly for temporary exhibitions, as well as our public programs. And again, this is a great example of how putting content up so where people can actually take it with them, in this case, in their MP3 player or iPod. When I got to MoMA, one of the first things I wanted to do was start a Flickr group. But in searching, I found that there are already 3 or 4 really good Flickr pools that people have created on their own outside the museum of photos that people took inside the MoMA. So there really was no reason to create one. Before we launched our new website last March of 2009, we came up with the idea of wanting to use our visitors' photos on our website. The photos, users' photos have a lot more character, have a lot more different perspective. They're from the visitors' perspective. They just have a lot more personality than maybe the regular institutional gallery shots. So we created this group, and there are rules to the group. To join the group and submit a photo, you have to agree to the group rules that just saying that MoMA can use your photo on our website, and we'll give you credit. All that. So right now, after about a year, we have about 1,200 members and almost about 4,500 photos. And here's just some of the examples. And again, they're definitely from you'll get shots that, and I've seen this for other institutions as well. You just get shots that moments you may not have captured if you went around with the camera yourself or hired a photographer. And again, it shows the visitor's perspective. A story I love to tell, a member of ours who works in Midtown comes to the museum about once a week, and he's an amateur photographer, and I love to tell people that he brought his monkey to MoMA once. And he actually did, because it's his stuffed monkey, And he shot the monkey all around the museum. He actually came back and did it twice. And this is an example of just like great urban content, user-generated content that people love. When I found this on my own, and I put it up on Facebook and Twitter, and people just loved it. This was content that people kept spreading and spreading. And in fact, the toy company that I guess made that monkey just contacted me the other day and wanted to do a story with us about this. So even a year and a half later or so, or a year, well, this happened about a year and a half, year later, people are still seeing this. And again, I show it, again, it's content that our users has created that show a lot of character and fun. These are two examples of users' photos that we have on our website. They're just screenshots of the top of our website. And you can see on the right bottom, there's a little thing that says Flickr. If you put your cursor over that, it will give credit and link back to the person's photo. And these are just two other examples. Right now, we have performance art Marina Bromovich. She's doing a piece in our atrium called The Artist is Present, where she's sitting there all day without food or water and doesn't speak. And you can sit down with her as long as you like and just lock eyes with her or make faces at her or whatever you want to do. But people, there's always a line. I mean, there's always a line of people coming to sit with her. She's doing this for 3 months. She's about halfway through. And you can sit with her for 5 minutes. You can sit with her for 2 hours. One guy sat with her for 7 hours. So she has a photographer who is taking a picture of everyone's face who sits down. And we've loaded it up to Flickr. And we're showing these videos on our sub-site. We have a special website we've created for her exhibition. There's also on the 6th floor of the museum, there are people re-performing her performance art. So it's hers and upstairs. So, but what's happened here is that people have become really love this feed of photos. And it sparked even other blogs. There's actually a blog that we just found called Marina Bromovich Made Me Cry, because there are actually a lot of photos of people who are in tears. And in fact, this woman, I don't know if you can really see, and I didn't actually mean to pick her because she's actually crying, and this guy is crying. And there's 12 to 18 photos of people just in tears. I haven't done it yet, but I'll be bawling when I do it. But that was just for effect. There's also, we found a woman has a blog of photos of her, and each time she sat down, she's in a different costume. When she's in a burqa, another time she's, I think, dressed as a man, on and on and on. So, and it's also become a game on Twitter. People are sort of playing this game of identifying, famous people who are sitting down. People have identified Lou Reed, Ruth Wainwright, Sharon Stone, Aggie Gund, our chairman, and so on. So it's almost it's taken on sort of like this game aspect that we didn't expect. So after we came back from museums and the web, my boss later created our Facebook page on Sunday afternoon, and we just sort of went off, from there. The great thing we learned about Facebook is that you can really put all your content right up on Facebook. So we try to put everything on our website, we try to put up on here. Exhibition information, hours, our videos you can find, all sorts of general information. As well, I'll talk about this more with Twitter, but I post information there that all of our fans and followers receive. And forgive me if this is all secondhand, you all know this. But there's kind of a funny story in that when we started the Facebook page, the next day we realized that there actually was another MoMA page. And I was kicking myself for a week, because the guy who had started exactly a month to the day from the day that we started ours. And it already had 8,000 to 10,000 people, which, just couldn't believe how many people he had. It was great. But he had a really outdated logo that I'd never seen, and he also had us in East New York, which is actually way out of Brooklyn by JFK Airport, and it's quite different from Midtown Manhattan. But they had some content up there, and I got in touch with them, and I wrote them, and I said, we love what you're doing, it's great, but can I send you our content, particularly our latest logo and the right address information? And and as well as all the other content that I'm putting up on ours. And luckily for me, he was a freshman at Northwestern University in Chicago, and he said, absolutely, why don't you become an administrator of our site? I said, great. So I basically made it a mirror site of our Facebook page. And then the huge spike you see in that March of 2009, I actually got Facebook to join our 2 pages, which is one reason for our large fan base. And it also worked out for me because he became a intern of mine last summer, and he's coming back this summer to intern. So another great thing about Facebook is that you can really see the demographics of the people who are following your page. Here it breaks it down like top countries, top cities, language, male, female, age. Up until about 7 or 6 months ago, the top cities were actually Milan, New York, and Rome, which we thought was just incredibly interesting. I mean, that Milan, there were more people in Milan following our page than in New York. That recently changed, and now it's New York, Rome, and Milan. But in the countries, it's just very interesting. The United States is the most popular, of course, and then after it's Italy, and then a far third is France. So again, just realizing that there's a large population from Italy in this community, and that can help you sort of tell your messages to these groups. On Facebook, you can actually target just people who live in Italy, so it can be very useful. Again, it's a way to understand who's in your community and what their interests might be. So Twitter, we started in November of 2008, and I have actually been on Twitter myself to see if it was something that MoMA should do, and I, like everyone else, did not need something else to log into and manage. But I came to find out that Twitter actually was actually a great way to get information. It wasn't about like who had what for lunch and all that. It all depends who you follow, and if you follow the right people, you can get really a lot of great information. So we started, and it's been pretty fascinating to just watch it grow. So the content that we put up here, we'll put posts up about what's going on at MoMA, that an exhibition is opening or closing, or there's this great film festival. But I think one thing that's really worked, one thing that's been very appreciated by our followers is that we posted a lot of content that happens outside of MoMA's walls that may not be related to MoMA. Well, may not be about MoMA, but may be related to our curatorial content. So again, it's putting up information that, thinking about like, well, what is our community interested in? What are our followers interested in? Well, they're interested in design, photography, art and sculpture, painting and sculpture, architecture and design. So I try to put up a good mix of stuff that I feel like people will be interested in. So I mean, just this example, there's a short film of Lawrence Weiner that was great. And then down here is just a great photo of Picasso. I think by doing this, people realize that MoMA is not. One thing I learned is that messages here, you can't just use blatant marketing. You have to. It's more about conversation. And the great thing about Twitter is that people can ask me questions and I can answer them right back. The top one, I replied to somebody who had a problem with our delivering a package from our store. So it's a direct way for people to communicate to you. It's another way to show that the institution has character, and this is why I brought up the sort of negative reviews of our new building. That MoMA is sometimes be seen as a big lumbering institution. These are ways to actually give your institution character and show that there are actually people behind it. One thing that also I've gotten a lot of feedback on and has been very appreciated is just that I identify myself up in the bio. I originally had my name and my own Twitter handle there, so people knew that. And it just put people knew that there was somebody responsible for this, and that it wasn't just the marketing group pumping out marketing messages. Another thing that I found very helpful, putting out content that I think that our fans have been interested in. They also will take that and they'll spread it around. So they repost it to all their followers and so on. And I think it's sort of developed trust in that people know that we're not just bombarding them with marketing messages, that we are really talking about what the content that is at MoMA, and whether it's design or it's painting or photography. One thing I use is something called TweetDeck, and I bring this up only to show you that there's a way to organize all this information. And although this is an application, so there are different columns, and one column is everyone I follow, one column is people who mention our Twitter name. But on the right, and then also, there are other columns that I don't show, I search for words. So I search for keywords like MoMA, I search for Museum of Modern Art, I could search for, Kentridge, because we have a William Kentridge exhibition now. And so I'm listening into what people are saying. And whether it's somebody complaining about their order not coming through in the store, complaining about the Tim Burton exhibition being too crowded, or saying that this exhibition was amazing. See, one of the great things about social media, and probably one of the most important things, that I really feel like even if you're not active in, you can still use it as a listening device. Really listening to what people are saying, their experiences. Also a great way to get feedback. I put out a question on Twitter and Facebook, just asking people, what would you like to see in the museum mobile phone application? And with all the responses we got back, we compiled them, and we actually are using them for an iPhone application that we're about to come out with. It's also amazing how many people spell MoMA, M-O-M-A, which I always found interesting, but we're not talking about MoMA, we're talking about their mama or your mama. So, that's Foursquare is something somewhat new. It's sort of a geolocation application where people can come in and they check in on this application by GPS, and they say, I'm here at MoMA, or I'm here at the National Maritime Museum. And then they can leave tips like, this exhibition was great, or make sure to go to Cafe 2 because it's it's really wonderful, or they leave tips for other people who check in. And this is something that we're not quite using on our site yet. On our Facebook page, we pull in all these comments. So again, it's another feedback mechanism. There's a real marketing potential in this, in that the person who checks in the most becomes the mayor. There's sort of a game aspect to it. Somebody becomes the mayor. So a lot of businesses are offering the mayor if it's a bar, then the mayor gets a free drink, that sort of thing. There are also badges that you get. If you check in 5 times, you get a certain badge. So we're not going to do this, but it would be something like if you check in 5 times, you get an assistant curator badge. Something like that. It's like game aspects. And again, every time somebody checks in, their network is notified that they're at MoMA, so on and so forth. I mention this only because it's sort of the next thing to really start becoming more and more prevalent. We started our blog this past February or so, and this is another way where another place that we're developing a lot of content. People from all around the museum are writing. It's not an easy task to manage, but the great thing about this is that I use Facebook and Twitter to direct people towards to this content and try to start discussions. Another thing we did, MoMA just acquired the @sign, which has caused a lot of conversation. And instead of sending a press release out, our design curator, Paula Antonelli, wrote a blog post about it. And that really served just as well, if not better, than a press release. It spread around the web by people and really caused a lot of debate. There's just an example. It's just a page on our site where we sort of bring in all of our communities together and show people where we are on the web. As well, at the top of the Jeff and John's, that's a Flickr feed, so you can play that and see all the videos that people have submitted. So the big question is, how do you measure all this? And the truth is, it's something that we're we're still struggling with. I think everybody is sort of struggling with. One thing I do use is I use what's called the URL shortener, and basically I'll take a long, unwieldy URL and I'll change it to the short URL. So it'll be something much more, be like a 10-character URL. But I can track that and I can tell how many people have clicked on which links. So I can tell which links people are clicking on the most, which is being shared the most, and this is a way to find out what content people are most interested in. So this is just, in the past year and a half, this is just the top 20 links that we put out, either on, usually to Twitter and Facebook. The ones in the red are URLs that go to content outside of MoMA.org, and they're usually about content that's not related to the institution. So it's just interesting to see that 9 out of 20 of these are go to content outside of MoMA.org. So again, it's not just about what's inside your institution. Another thing on Twitter, you can now find out how many people have retweeted your tweets, or how many people repost the posts that you put up. So again, it's another way of finding what people find most engaging, what people are most interested in. This is just in the past 6 months, our incoming web traffic. Facebook is always up around the fourth sense. Well, we get a large amount of traffic from Google. The next is people just typing in MoMA.org or coming from a bookmark. And the next one is Facebook. So we get a large amount of traffic from Facebook. We also get a good amount of traffic from StumbleUpon, which is another social site, and Twitter that I'm known for being. So, again, I'm asked, well, how does this translate into visitors? We can show how it translates into web traffic, but how does this translate into visitors, paying audience numbers? And that is sort of our next step to try to really figure that out, and I think everybody's sort of in the same boat, trying to figure out what's the best way. We have a lot of anecdotal evidence, and I just picked out some really great comments that I found on Facebook. I forgot what the post was, but somebody at the top said, now I really want to visit the museum in New York City. Said person, wow, we'll definitely go there. And this is of the same post. We'll definitely go there the next time we visit the US. And I have nothing to do with paying these people. I don't know. It's also a great way, as I said, to get the negative comments. Somebody's very disappointed in the way we handled our Tim Burton exhibition. We had to have time tickets because it was such a small gallery and such a popular exhibition. And this is not the only person who complained about that. And this one, this one is just, I couldn't have paid anyone to write anything better. It's almost as if I wrote it for my bosses. But this person actually started complaining about Tim Burton, that why would MoMA have Tim Burton that's totally, it's totally beneath us, it's not art, and so on and so forth. And basically, there was a long discussion with other Facebook followers saying, that's not true, you haven't seen the exhibition, it's amazing, he's an artist, so on and so forth. And we chimed in and just said, thank you very much for your comments, that's what we're here for the good and the bad, And he wrote back, since joining the Facebook page last year, I've not only visited the museum much more often, but it has encouraged me to actually bite the bullet and become a member for the first time in 15 years. The fact is, this page is generally moderated. There's a huge difference, and even if I'm a crank during the Tim Burton show, I have felt disconnected to MoMA since my art school days in the 80s, I think, and that's sort of like, I couldn't imagine a better quote, and honestly, I didn't write that. Not that you see that every single day, but it was just sort of reaffirming to see that. So, from my experience, this is sort of what I've learned. I think in going, in using social media, you have to think about what are your goals and how you measure that. And I think for everyone it's a bit different. And depending on what your goals are, I think that determines what sites you use. I think it is really true. You don't have to use something just because everyone else is doing it. If that can help you attain your goal, then it works. I saw the museum had the astronomy photo, which was great, and that's really great. Who's your audience? What are they passionate about? What do they find interesting? And again, we realize that it's not just things that are happening inside MoMA, it's things that are happening outside MoMA, but it's about painting, sculpture, or design, photography. Seeing what other communities like yours exist, how can you work with them? How can you talk to their audiences and work with them? A lot of social. I repost stuff from other museums. It's really not that competitive. It's actually a very collaborative space, which is really nice. Something that's incredibly important. I haven't really mentioned this is the voice that you use. I think the voice that you use is incredibly important, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about this. In that you have to find a voice that works for your institution, that is, let's say, that is very welcoming and open and friendly, almost the way you would speak as if you just met somebody who just came to your institution and you're welcoming them. I think that helps people sort of trust in what you're doing on these platforms. And then think about what content do you have already available that you can put out there. Is it video? Is it historical documents, etc.? So my observations from what works, and I've mentioned most of these, is just to avoid blatant marketing. Blatant marketing messages on these platforms might as well be spammed and will be turned off. I think a lot of people see Facebook and Twitter about having conversations with people. So it's not a one-way dialogue, it's a two-way conversation. You'll hear a lot of people sort of mention a lot of, talk about non-brand related content that I mentioned. Participate and ask for participation. I found that people love to be asked questions. They love to feel like MoMA is asking for their opinion. And that really generates a lot of engagement and participation. Find your voice, even try not to, bring some personality and character to your institution. To advocate internally so that it's important that everybody understands why you're using these channels if you do. And it also helps that people understand, and if the person who is managing these platforms, if he or she needs content, they can go to somebody and say, I need this content, and that person will understand why it's being used. So it really helps make it work for the institution. And just lastly, just how important it is just to listen to what people are saying. If anything else, this is a great tool just to do that. And sometimes I used this earlier on, but just a great book, if anybody's interested, is the book Groundswell, written by Forrester researchers. And it just really explains well what companies or organizations can do with social media. Listening to people, talking to their users, energizing their users so that they can spread the good word about the institution. Create a place where the users can talk to each other and support each other rather than coming to the institution for help or support. And I won't go into this, but it's part of the book. It helps you separate. You can figure out what types of followers you have. Do you have followers who create their own content? Do you have followers who just are spectators and just see what you put out? Do you have followers who will interact every now and then? And it's understanding their audience a bit more. So my email is below. I'm happy to answer any questions, I guess now or even after this thing ever comes up. I'm more than happy to discuss more.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
You mentioned you redesigned your website in 2009. I'm just interested to what extent did you consider these things, particularly I guess stuff like SEO, when you were doing the redesign, or did you consider them?
We so outside of social media, or just we a lot happened sort of at the same time, which was really lucky for us. We actually did an SEO optimization campaign right as we were launching, and we only did that for about 6 months. Search engine optimization is basically tweaking the programming of your website so that your site comes up more higher up in search engines. And it's a very efficient and great way to get more traffic for more people to find you. So we did that right as we launched. We also, that communities page, we have our Twitter feed there. the Flickr images, putting those on the website, and that's something that we're going to do more and more of. Putting our video content around the website. So if you go to an exhibition page, the page that has information about the exhibition, if we have a video on that exhibition, the video will be on that page. Does that answer?